across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. It's a really dreadful day for our nation, for politics, for this station as well, because Ann Widdecombe, who frequently contributed to the programme, has allegedly been murdered. There is a man, a 26-year-old man, who's been arrested as a result of a brutal attack that happened, which he may or may not be responsible for. He is, of course, innocent until proven otherwise. But there's just absolute devastation across the nation and indeed politically because of Ann Widdecombe's death. She was someone who was not just a politician, not just a commentator, not just a supporter, first of the Conservatives, then of the Brexit Party. She was an MEP for them, and then of Reform UK, but also of a star in her own right in other ways, of reality TV, of Strictly Come Dancing, of Big Brother. There were so many other ways where she contributed and continued to contribute until 2 days ago to this station. We'll be looking into what's happened. We'll be speaking to her Reform UK colleague Andrew Rossendale, MP. We'll also be talking about the fact that Pakistan says it's not going to take back Shabir Ahmed, the despicable, evil Rochdale grooming gang's leader. We'll talk about that and the diplomatic row around that too, and many other stories too, including how working from home could be bad for your health. Loads to discuss this evening. Please let me know your thoughts on all of it. 0344 499 1000. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Send me a WhatsApp voice note, send me a WhatsApp text message, or give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss, such a shocking news story to react to. I'd love your memories of Ann Widdecombe as well. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 here until 9 o'clock tonight here on Talk. Well, let's get the very latest from the police press conference that happened. This was just around the time a 26-year-old man had been arrested. Devon and Cornwall Police's Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman had this to say.
We can confirm that a 26-year-old man was arrested at an address in Newton Abbot this afternoon on suspicion of the murder of Ann Widdecombe. The suspect, who is a white British national, remains in police custody whilst inquiries continue. Officers were called to Miss Widdecombe's home at Haytor by the ambulance service around 11:40 a.m. on Thursday the 9th of July. Sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdecombe was located deceased within the property. She has sustained serious injuries. Her next of kin have been informed and are being supported by specially trained officers. Detectives from the Force Major Crime Investigation Team have launched a murder investigation and are conducting extensive inquiries into the circumstances surrounding Miss Widdecombe's death. While we work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries, the incident is not being treated as terrorism. A cordon remains in place at the property while specialist officers continue forensic examinations. There are road closures in place around the scene, and the public will see significant police activity in the area while detectives and other officers continue house-to-house and CCTV inquiries. This is an extremely tragic incident. Our thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Miss Widdecombe at this very difficult time.
Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman, the Prime Minister has paid tribute. Here's Keir Starmer.
Well, this is really shocking news, and my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe at this awful time for them. Ann was a distinguished politician over many, many years with many achievements, and it's a huge, huge loss. I've spoken to the Chief Constable this afternoon about the details, and I think this is really important, that this is a moment where we rise above any political differences, the political divide, and say the single most important thing at the moment is that all of us and the public help the police identify the individual suspected and make sure he's arrested as quickly as possible. He's clearly dangerous, and I implore everybody who's got any information in relation to him to help the police with their inquiries, get him into police custody. To that end, I've spoken to the Speaker of the House, I've spoken to the Leader of the Opposition, I've spoken to Nigel Farage as the Leader of Reform, and I've spoken to Andy Burnham to urge everybody to come together at a moment like this and to urge everybody to help the police. But go back to where I started, my thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe, a distinguished politician over many, many years.
A distinguished politician over many years. She was, of course, Prisons Minister in the Home Office under the Conservatives. Later on, after being an MP for many years, she was an MEP, this time for the Brexit Party, and then she started to support Reform UK and indeed was a spokesman for them on immigration. We'll be speaking to one of her Reform UK colleagues in just a second, but let's hear what the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, had to say about the death of Ann Widdecombe.
I've been stunned to hear this awful news. To be honest, I've really struggled to find the words to say. Ann Widdecombe was a very fun and feisty woman who spoke her mind, and she was 78 years old. She was an elderly woman. I don't understand how someone could do something so horrific to an elderly person. It is a nasty, horrific attack, and my heart is breaking for her family. It's one thing when someone dies, but to know that they've been murdered in this horrible way is just awful. The Conservative Party is reeling. Anne was a long-standing member of the Conservative Party. She was a Conservative minister, and then she moved to Reform, of course. As we know, I'm sure that they are just as stunned as we are, and I extend my condolences to Nigel Farage and everyone in Reform on behalf of the Conservative Party, because we've both lost a friend.
Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer there, both speaking before the arrest of a 26-year-old man. I'll speak to Andrew Rossendale in just a second, but we have a little bit of breaking news in that the King and Queen hosted Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet at Highgrove today. We're told Charles and Camilla met Harry and Meghan at their family home in Gloucestershire. Sources claim it was a private family occasion. No photos or further information will be released. So if there's anything more on that, of course, we'll tell you. But the main news, of course, Ann Widdecombe's murder. It is Andrew Rossendale who is joining us now. He is the Reform UK MP for Romford. Andrew, you, of course, will have known Ann Widdecombe for many years, not least because you were both in the Conservative Party and then both ended up, of course, in Reform UK. What are your thoughts today, Andrew? And you're very welcome to the programme, and I'm sorry to hear this news for you and to everyone in Reform UK, and indeed the Conservative Party as well, who knew Ann Widdecombe.
So, Peter, I knew Anne for about 40 years. She was an incredible lady, very rare in politics, someone that was there because she believed in things. Isn't it incredible? A politician that actually wasn't there for their own preferment, looking for titles and positions. She believed in things for this country. She believed in our Christian heritage. She believed in an independent Britain. She believed in conservative values in a social sense. And she was desperately unhappy about the way the country was going. And that's why, like me, she joined Reform UK. But to lose someone of her stature, someone of such integrity and someone of such courage, who has fought for her entire life for the things she believed in, is really a tragic moment, not only for my party and the Conservative Party that she was an MP for many years, but for the whole country. She was someone of great integrity and authenticity. And I'm desperately sad that we've lost Ann Widdecombe in such horrific circumstances.
You knew her for 40 years, a long time, and you forget that in politics there are often people who've been around for a very long period of time, who know each other very, very well, who are friends. What kind of person was she? Just tell us maybe a story or two about times where you were working together or you saw her in action. There are some, I mean, one of the phrases, of course, she was an incredibly good communicator right up to the last. She was speaking to Mark Dolan on this station just 2 days ago and communicated brilliantly then. I mean, with Michael Howard, she fell out with him at the Home Office. She said there was something of the night about him, and that phrase has followed him throughout his life, really, hasn't it?
Look, she said things as it is. You know, she didn't mince her words.
Yeah.
And, you know, she would absolutely tell you when she thought you were wrong. And, you know, I had many conversations with her, and there were some things we disagreed on, but generally speaking, her politics and my politics were very similar. So we became very close friends, and she always supported me, advised me, and helped me over many years. But David Amess was her great friend, of course. And, you know, when he was murdered, she was there for the Amess family. She was there supporting Julia and the children when their father was brutally murdered in 2021. And the thing is about Anne is that she would always put other people first. It wasn't about her, it was about everybody else. And she would always be there when you needed her. She was kind and generous, but she was always very principled. You know, a lot of people in politics are very smarmy. You know, they'll say what you want them to say just to be liked. Well, she wasn't that kind of politician. She was a woman of great principle. You know, she was somebody who, frankly, would have made, I think, a great prime minister, actually. When you look back, I think she did stand for Conservative leadership.
She did, and politics was changing quite a lot. Her views at that time didn't quite tally with so many in the Conservative Party. It's interesting. She was a very loyal person as well. I know that she stood by Harvey Procter, for example, when the completely untrue allegations were made against him, when so many abandoned him. She was also someone who really didn't take herself too seriously. She was very happy to be on Strictly Come Dancing, Celebrity Big Brother. She knew on Strictly Come Dancing that essentially, you know, in the nicest possible way, she was the joke. People were kind of laughing at her, but also she laughed at herself. And I mean, Anton Dubek, who was her dancing partner, said, "I had the most brilliant time with Anne on Strictly Come Dancing. She became a real friend. She was fun, she was upbeat, she was positive, she was supportive, she was game. She wanted to enter into the spirit of the whole thing, and we had an incredible time together, and we stayed firm friends. My thoughts go out to all of her nearest and dearest and all her family. This is a sad day, and I'm devastated by the news of Anne's passing, but I shall remember her fondly and miss her," said Anton Dubek.
Look, I cannot conjure the words to describe how I'm feeling at the moment. Having lost David Amess in 2021, of course, Joe Cox was also murdered. And now Ann Widdecombe has been murdered. We don't know the circumstances. We don't know what the motive was. But to lose anyone that's been a great public servant, a servant of the nation as she's been, having been a member of Parliament, having been a member of the European Parliament, having fought to get Britain out of the European Union and to deliver Brexit, working with Nigel Farage in recent years, she's going to be a huge loss to British politics. And I really do mourn her loss, not only as a politician, but as a human being. She was one of the kindest, most generous, most decent people I've ever known. And to lose her in this way, I think, is a very sad day for the country.
I completely agree with you, and I think that both the Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch, have been very statesman and stateswoman-like in how they have conducted themselves. Less, I'm afraid I can't say that about my broadcasting colleague Adam Bolton, who has upset many people this evening by saying this on Sky News.
But she was very much a spinster. I mean, by the end, I think you probably describe her as an old maid. Reportedly, She claimed that she was a virgin. She had a relationship at university. She went to Oxford University into an all-women's college, of course.
I mean, do you think it's appropriate to talk about someone as a spinster and old maid and talk about her personal life in that way, especially any day, but a day like today?
No, it's absolutely shocking. I'm really, really appalled at Adam Bolton's remarks. You know, I don't know what's happening to Adam, but he's really going in the wrong road, down the wrong road recently on a lot of things. I've seen other interviews, but this really is quite vile, the things he's saying. Ann Widdecombe was a lovely, kind person. You know, this is not a time for making cheap jibes about someone's personal life, about their character. Anyone that knew Anne will know what a very kind, generous person she was, and she cared about other people. She would never make personal remarks in that way. So I think Adam Bolton should be quite ashamed of himself for saying those things today.
I think a lot of people have certainly made that point. Just before you go, I just want to ask you about one other story which is on the front page of the Times today, talking about the Met inquiry into the £500,000 donation to reform, questions over cash from the fraud convict's mother. Metropolitan Police launching this into Fiona Cottrell, who is George Cottrell's mother, Posh George, as it's called. This of course, now seems to... this happened a lot earlier today. It seems a long time ago since we were talking about this story. But clearly there are questions for your party to answer on it. How will they be dealing with that, Andrew?
Look, today is not the day for talking about those issues. Those issues will be dealt with in the proper fashion. All I can say is this. Nigel Farage has done nothing wrong. All these accusations, I think, are politically motivated. He's somebody that's actually fighting to sort this country out. And goodness me, don't we need someone to get a grip of this country and put it in a stronger and a better place? Nigel's that person. So yes, of course, he's getting support and financial support from a range of people. But this is not money that he's taken. It's money that he's given to do the job that he's trying to do. Also, there's a question of his own security. I mean, some of the money he has to raise funds his own security because he gets almost no security from the British state. So frankly, I think that this is all petty. What really matters is that our country needs leadership, and Nigel Farage, I think, is the only person that's offering the leadership we need to rescue Britain. And I really hope that once this by-election's over and he's back in Parliament, we can look forward to a general election where he will become our next Prime Minister.
Andrew, thank you. That's Andrew Rossendale there, the Reform UK MP for Romford. Lots of people getting in touch about Ann Widdecombe. Dee in Chesterfield says Ann Widdecombe was a great stateswoman, sincere and forthright. She certainly gave the snidey lads and Have I Got News For You a run for their money. We shall not see her like again. That's Dee in Chesterfield there. Mac in Glasgow says, Mac, I haven't heard from you in a little while. It's great to hear from you. He says, tonight we need to put our political opinions and feelings aside and salute Ann Widdecombe for her great courage to stand by her convictions, a quality which is void in our politicians today. Social media can be a very toxic and cruel place, and people should be showing human compassion and love towards her family today. Great show, says Mac. Andrew in Salisbury says, so sad about Ann Widdecombe. What a horrible end to a great life. I will always remember a debate between Anne, Christopher Hitch and Stephen Fry and a bishop from Nigeria. She lost the debate, but not without a fight. And then Leslie says Anne deserved a peerage for her long, honourable service to the UK. Shame on both parties, especially the Tories, who she helped deliver. Margaret in Birmingham says, what a sad, sad day with the passing of Ann Widdecombe. I love listening to Anne on Talk. Sincere condolences to her family and friends. Betty says it was a real shock this morning when Anne's passing was announced. Then to hear the poor woman was murdered. No doubt she will be declared. No doubt the suspect will be declared mentally ill and not a woke lefty, and as usual, white man declared in minutes. Non-terror declared. Don't always agree with her in regard to Ann Widdecombe, but straight as a die. Well, of course, the man who's been arrested is that on suspicion and is innocent until proven guilty or not, as the case may be. Amanda says, good evening, Peter. Ann Widdecombe, RIP, a huge loss to Reform UK and politics, a true superstar who did not deserve to die in this way. The timing of her death is certainly questionable. And one more actually on Harry and Meghan, who we know have been meeting the King and Queen today at Highgrove. We got that news that there would be photographs or video or anything like that, simply that it was a private visit where Harry, Meghan, Lilibet and their son Archie met Charles and Camilla, their grandmother and grandfather, or step-grandmother, I suppose. Martin in Lichfield says, probably a bit controversial, but who cares about Harry and the field marmalade saleswoman and a cosy get-together with Charles? How lovely, they're not newsworthy. I'm so angry and upset about the awful murder of Ann Widdecombe. King Charles is not doing a good job, and this country and its Christian values are on the precipice of a breakup. Where's his concern? Such a disconnection. I was a royalist, but no more. Wake up, Charles, or the royal family is toast, says Martin from Lichfield. He also, at the start of your message, Martin, he said, probably a bit controversial for talk. If your view is, you know, if you have a view, I will read it out. If it's within the law and you're not libeling anybody and you're not making any false claims, I will read it out and said, I know Adam and I've worked with him. Used to work at Sky News. Sat opposite him. Any day, never mind the day the poor woman has died. Made them, and I hope he apologises for them. We'll go on to the debate desk.
Year sentence for 30 child rape cases. He got less than instead of 1 because the sentence is basically the same. I mean, we're literally incentivising child.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jay has been in touch with a voice note. This is what Jay has to say.
Evening, Peter. What a dark, dark day for our country. I can't believe Ann Widdecombe's been murdered. There's no way her life should have ended like that. I have nothing but respect for that woman and what she said, how she said it. She was such a wise old owl. It's a real tragic loss for our country. I hope they throw the book at that fella. It absolutely disgusts me. And with regard to the Rochdale scum bag, well, if they're not going to take him back, I would hope that we will withdraw the Pakistan foreign aid, because it's no joke now. They got to get rid of him and make an example of him. Anyway, keep up the good work. Cracking show.
Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate that. And just to reiterate, of course, for legal reasons, the 26-year-old man who has been arrested, he hasn't been charged yet. We don't know if he's the person who did it. He hasn't had a trial yet, so let's just remember that he is innocent until proven guilty. That's how the system works in this country and in a democracy. And yeah, Jay, totally get where you're coming from. Totally get your very strong emotion, as so many other people have as well. Debbie says, may Anne rest in peace. And a person who took her life gets what's coming to him. I can't believe what I heard today about her passing. To be murdered is unthinkable. I'm so sorry to all at Talk. She was such a supporter who stepped up to chat where applicable, and that's echoed certainly by other people as well. Katie in Hampshire, so sad to hear what has happened to Ann Widdecombe. I stupidly looked at the horrendous comments on X. In absolute despair that people can be so cruel and heartless about the loss of a life in such an awful way because of a difference of opinion. Our country is in so much trouble because the left have lost compassion and empathy, says Katie. Kaz in Staffordshire, I'm really saddened to hear about the death of Ann Widdecombe. She was a big personality, loved her views and missed her, and I miss her. Sending love to her family and friends, and you, Peter, and all at Talk who knew her. R.I.P. Anne, says Kaz. Another person, Steve in Cambridge, says, sad day. Who's going to tell Mark Dolan off every weekend now? R.I.P. Anne. And yes, I have been told off by Ann Widdecombe previously. Steve, certainly when I've interviewed him, and I interviewed her and maybe got like a small detail wrong or something like that. The one I remember very clearly was when I said, I was talking about, she was on Celebrity Fit Club, and she was brilliant. She was such a character on that show as well. She did quite a lot of reality TV, and she did Celebrity Fit Club, and someone said to her afterwards, you know, you should write it. Lots of people said you should write a diet book, and she said it would be 2 words, eat less. But it actually wasn't. I said, I remember you saying it would be 2 words, eat less. And I said, no, it would be 4 words actually, eat less, move more. You should get that right. You know, you're a journalist, you should get things factually correct. I mean, it was about 15 years ago, but I certainly felt admonished. But I mean, it was with a smile as well. And Nat's been in touch as well and says she adored her cats, Peter. She survived by her cat Aloysius as well. And there are lots of photos that I've seen online of Ann Widdecombe as well. Some breaking news now on the man wanted in connection with the murder of a woman and her 2 children in Bedfordshire has been arrested in South Africa. The bodies of Natobo Zandile Tushuma, 42, and her daughters Natalie, 15, and 5-year-old Nala were found at a house in Great Denham near Bedford on the 6th of July. If we hear any more on that between now and 10, of course, I will bring it to you. On Ann Widdecombe, just some detail came, of course, at the police press conference earlier. Let's hear that from the Assistant Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Police and get the detail on that before we go to the debate desk with Mike and with Lucy. So let's just hear that.
We can confirm that a 26-year-old man was arrested at an address in Newton Abbot this afternoon on suspicion of the murder of Ann Widdecombe. The suspect, who is a white British national, remains in police custody whilst inquiries continue. Officers were called to Miss Widdecombe's home at Haytor by the ambulance service around 11:40 a.m. on Thursday the 9th of July. Sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdecombe was located deceased within the property. She has sustained serious injuries. Her next of kin have been informed and are being supported by specially trained officers. Detectives from the Force Major Crime Investigation Team have launched a murder investigation and are conducting extensive inquiries into the circumstances surrounding Miss Widdecombe's death. While we work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries, the incident is not being treated as terrorism. A cordon remains in place at the property while specialist officers continue forensic examinations. There are road closures in place around the scene, and the public will see significant police activity in the area while detectives and other officers continue house-to-house and CCTV inquiries. This is an extremely tragic incident. Our thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Miss Widdecombe at this very difficult time.
That was Devon and Cornwall's Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman. Well, Mike Indian is with me on the debate desk. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening.
And Lucy Beresford is too. Lovely to see you, political commentators both. And, of course, Lucy is a psychotherapist as well. Tell me your thoughts on this very sad day, Mike.
I think it's, first of all, there are very few people that cross the boundary between being in the House of Commons and permeating the public consciousness the way that Ann Widdecombe did. No matter what you thought of her, I think this is evidenced just by the sheer number of WhatsApps I've received from friends and family who were shocked at the news and becoming aware of her. And certainly in an era when, as you and I know, Peter, the recognition of modern politicians is a lot lower, but Ann Widdecombe had a recognition that didn't just stem from her political career.
I've got it too. I've got loads of, and maybe you have too, Lucy, lots of people not really interested in politics who knew who she was.
Everybody who knew her.
From Strictly Come Dancing, from all these other shows she did, Celebrity Big Brother and things like that.
And also because she was unafraid to be opinionated. You know, sometimes within the world of politics you have to toe the party line. And she was someone who gained notoriety by not doing that and actually really fighting against the people who were leading her party at the time, refusing to be in cabinet at certain stages. So she had almost a modern persona in terms of how she engaged with an audience way before social media became a thing. And then, of course, as soon as it did, she was able to ride that wave, and she was a real fixture on certain panel shows. I actually worked with her once on a show on Channel 5, but there is a sense in which... feisty.
Yes.
I mean, you just could. There was no sense of, oh, we're going to be women on this panel together. There was never any of that. She was so unique in her perspective on life. I didn't always agree with her. She had a lot of her values were drawn from her Catholicism, which she converted to several decades ago. And as a result of that, there were one or two things that I didn't share the same beliefs as her around abortion or the shackling of women who are going through labour if they're in prison, that kind of thing. But that's the point. This is someone who you could disagree with and yet still warm to because she was so authentic. And that kind of currency in this day and age makes her even more popular.
Very few politicians are authentic. She was nothing if not authentic. She was a character, wasn't she, Mike?
Absolutely, and I think the bent against being a careerist is something that I think we've lost a lot of. You know, more politicians now are obsessed with simply not saying the wrong thing. Ann Widdecombe always said what she appeared to genuinely believe, and I think that degree of authenticity is something that, Lucy's right, resonates with a lot of people. It's probably why she became such a beloved figure among Reform UK voters as well, who historically have always valued that quality, I think, in the politicians that have been drawn to that party. But I think the best thing we can learn from Ann Widdecombe's life is that it's important, if you're in political life, to be able to stand by the courage of your convictions, to be able to challenge the structures around you, and certainly remember at a time, she was operating at a time when it was very hard to be a woman in Westminster, particularly with the Conservative whip's office as it was. She wasn't afraid to take on the largely male hierarchy of her party and to stand by what she believed in.
Yes.
And I think that's an admirable trait.
criticised colleagues even in the Home Office. Michael Howard, she said there was something of the night about it. I mean, that followed him. That followed him throughout his career. I remember literally on the day of the 2005 election, the Mirror newspaper had this extraordinary front page where they had a kind of mocked up Michael Howard as a vampire, and they literally had vote Labour, him being killed as a vampire, and said there's too much at stake. I mean, that's something of the night. That kind of him as a vampiric figure. That was because of her comment, which had such. I mean, we're talking about it right now, like 30 years later.
It became his identity tag with things like Bread and the Bird and Fortune as well. And for a colleague to give that to someone is absolutely extraordinary.
But particularly in the world of politics,
absolutely,
again, there's almost a code that you didn't cross that boundary and make it too personal. And suddenly this line gets delivered, which was a sort of backbench speech. Nobody saw it coming. It's as devastating, arguably, as Geoffrey Howe's resignation speech in front of Margaret Thatcher. It's one of those moments where you suddenly feel that is a line that people are going to be quoting forever.
And they were. I remember Rory Bremner, when Michael Howard was leader of the Conservative Party, every single time he said, "Hello, I'm Michael Howard. I'm not going to hurt you." I mean, it was remarkable. The sort of sorrow earlier today, I mean, I heard rumours last night. We couldn't report them because it was just a rumour, and I wanted to be absolutely fair to her family and to her friends and so on. You don't want to just report stuff that's rumours. And then it was officially announced this morning that she had died. So I did hear some stuff last night, but I just want to be absolutely sure, as I always am with stories, that they're correct before reporting them. The sorrow, the real outpouring of love for Ann Widdecombe then turned to absolute horror this afternoon. This extraordinary story and news that this is now a murder investigation, Lucy.
I think that's right.
Just to be absolutely clear, we know there's a white British 26-year-old man who's been arrested, not charged yet, no trial, we don't know whether he's guilty or not. But, I mean, that element is bizarre, extraordinary and horrifying.
I remember when I heard the news this morning and there was no context given. There was no sense that this was after a short illness or after a long battle with this, or there was no description as to what had happened. And then suddenly this revelation. And it's such a horrific way to die. And the idea that this would have happened to someone who is very much in the public eye suddenly becomes something that really becomes a very relatable. You think this is not just a random death, but something that people can think, well, this is horrific in the truest sense of the word.
Mike?
The story's taken a very dark turn, undoubtedly, today, and, you know, I think we all want to give our best wishes, as you have, Peter, to the friends and colleagues of Ann Widdecombe who will undoubtedly be feeling shocked about this. And I think all we can hope for is a speedy resolution, effective resolution to the police inquiry, followed by a thorough judicial process to determine the outcome.
I totally agree. There's such a shock, I think, in so many people just reacting to this evening. Maybe people are just hearing this news or reacting to it. Sally in Surrey says, "Dear Peter, dear oh dear, why would ... how could ... to murder that lady so brutally. This is very triggering for me, but help me out here, Peter, please. What on earth is happening to this country? I'm shocked. My heart is aching. I'm so glad you're on tonight. Love, Sally. Thank you, Sally and Surrey. Stephen Beckenham says the Tories, Labour, the establishment, they have blood on their hands. They've portrayed Reform as the nasty party. They've attracted these kinds of people. They'll all be praising her in PMQs. It makes me sick, says Steve. And another person says, hi, Cardi P. I shed more than a few tears today for Ann Widdecombe and her family. I only hope she didn't suffer for long before her frail body gave in. I bet anything she gave that intruder a piece of her mind before her departure. Bless that lovely lady, small in stature but big in personality. She will never be forgotten. My heart goes out to all of those who knew her. Well, thank you for that. Gaz says, if this isn't a watershed to calm down the right and left rhetoric, what is? It doesn't help that outgoing Prime Minister labelled the UK general public far right, but if they didn't have left-leaning views. We'll talk maybe a little bit more about that, actually, in just a second. Stay with us here on Talk, and do get your call in, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you to everybody who has been in touch, including Mick, who says, as a retired firearms officer, I'm seriously concerned about reported recent calls to routinely arm all police officers. Many of today's recruits cannot... sorry, that is mangled. I'm not quite sure. I don't think seem to have all the message, but he said RIP. Certainly when it comes to arming officers in Northern Ireland, all officers from a constable right through to a chief constable are armed. So I'm not quite sure what your point was, but thank you for your message nonetheless. Sorry, our technology seems to have let us down there. Sue from North Yorkshire says, I really don't care. I'm not interested in what the petulant prince and his family are up to. I consider it totally inappropriate for the royal family to announce what the inconsequential ex-royals are up to today. What matters today is the terribly sad news regarding the murder of Ann Widdecombe. Such an amazing woman. She will be such a loss for all of us in Reform. What has this country become? A very dark, sad day, says Sue. Emma says, I don't have an opinion about Ann Widdecombe. I don't know enough about her other than opinions she was most vocal about. I do, however, have an opinion on vile people making disgusting remarks. No one deserves to die like that, and they certainly don't deserve people saying such awful things. And I think that perhaps refers to, well, many of the comments that have been made online today. You can imagine Twitter is as much of a sewer as it sometimes is. RIP Anne says, Teresa, who says, I've just heard Adam Bolton on Sky regarding Anne's murder. It makes me sick to my stomach. What a vile and biased reporter commentator. Please call it out, says Teresa. Well, you know, happy to. I've known Adam Bolton for about 15 years. We worked together at Sky. Never had a problem with him. Always found him quite helpful. And I'm really shocked and pretty disgusted, actually, at his comments. Let's just remind ourselves what he said on Sky News earlier about Ann Widdecombe. We'll come back to that in just a second. I think we have it now. So this is what Adam Bolton said, the political commentator.
But she was very much a spinster. I mean, by the end, I think you probably describe her as an old maid. Reportedly, she claimed that she was a virgin. She had a relationship at university. She went to Oxford University into an all-women's college, of course.
Lucy?
Well, it's all there in the obituary in the Times. Everything that he's saying on air is actually written down about the fact that she described herself as a virgin and that she'd had this chaste relationship with somebody at university. So I feel uncomfortable about criticising someone who, in effect, was addressing that particular paragraph. It's not everything that we need to know about her. There are so many other elements of her life that are remarkable and inspiring and perhaps challenging. But this is someone who, again, I don't know how long the interview was. I don't know what the context was of him saying what he said. All I would say is it's in the obituary.
Anne in Archway says, I'm so sad, indicative of the decline in journalism that Adam Bolton found it necessary to judge Anne by saying spinster and old maid. Says Anne in Archway, who's a 77-year-old spinster, is how she has described herself. Tony says, I hope you don't mind me commenting again. Not at all, Tony. You're very welcome to send as many messages in as you like. I think Adam Bolton was totally wrong talking about Ann Widdecombe being a spinster and a virgin. Ann Widdecombe's private life was her business and no one else's. I cannot understand what relevance this had to Anne's passing. I always grew up respecting Adam Bolton, but he needs to hang his head in shame and explain himself. As Lucy says, she did describe herself as a spinster. What do you make of this, Mike?
I've always had an issue with the type of language that can be used to describe women of any age. I think there aren't equivalent terms really that could exist for men in English. And again, Adam Bolton, whatever the wider context is, that clip is going to be shared and reshared now, and he'll generate a significant amount of embarrassment for him too. But I think ultimately it highlights a great disparity when it comes to describing women versus men exists in the English language there.
You know, when you are engaged and the bans are read out in the Church of England, if you're over 30, you are a spinster of this parish. That is how you're described.
Wow.
And that is presumably incredibly archaic language, which we all just have to accept.
In the last, or do we? In the last few minutes, Nigel Farage has put a tribute to Ann Widdecombe on social media. Let's have a look at what the leader of Reform UK has said about Ann Widdecombe.
Ann Widdecombe was an extraordinary woman, without doubt the best-known female politician in Britain since Margaret Thatcher. Many, many years in the Conservative Party, then she joined me in 2019 in the Brexit Party, was an extraordinary colleague in the European Parliament, then beyond that into Reform. She reached, of course, way beyond politics with Strictly Come Dancing, Big Brother, her theatre tours. She wasn't just a politician, she was a celebrity. The thing about Anne is, she never ever sought popularity. She stood up and fought for what she believed in. A devout Christian and somebody with strong socially conservative views. Perhaps not popular in modern Britain, but that is what Anne believed in. And she could stand on a stage and give a speech. Didn't need prompts, didn't need notes, knew in her heart and her mind what she actually believed. There were times over the years when she and I disagreed, and she never, ever, ever let me get away with anything. But our disagreements would be in private, not in public, and that was Anne. Loyal. She understood that it was a team game and how the whole thing worked. I watched her with drivers, waiters, waitresses. She was kind to everybody. Frankly, this was somebody who gave her life to public service, to fighting for the things that she believed in. She herself would not have harmed a fly. And I'm deeply, deeply upset by the nature of her death. I'm pleased that the police have caught somebody, a 26-year-old man. We don't know what the political motives are, whether they exist at all. Was it a burglary gone wrong? We just don't know. And I'm not going to speculate at this stage. I'm pleased the police are doing their job. Our nation is a much, much poorer place without her. Reform UK is certainly a much worse place without her. I was expecting to see her in Clacton over the course of the next few days. Sadly, that is not going to happen. Rest in peace, Anne, a remarkable, principled woman, and a truly dreadful way to die, and a terrible reflection on modern Britain. And I do fear that for anybody in public life, or especially the political space, things have become even more dangerous today.
What do you make of that, Lucy?
It's very measured, and he makes it very clear that he doesn't want to speculate, for which I'm grateful. And this is someone who knew her really, really well. As he said, UKIP, Brexit Party, Reform, they go back a long way. And actually, I feel my heart goes out to someone like him who has known her for as long as he has and has had a really powerful relationship with her. I don't know whether you can then extrapolate from this one murder and say that this shows you how awful Britain is, which is kind of what he's trying to allude to right at the end there. But for sure, it does rather highlight the difficulties of being in the public eye.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that so much of our commentary around Nigel Farage in the last couple of weeks has been around, admittedly, issues around money, but also the ways in which he's been talking about security. And I don't know what the security implications would have been for someone who used to be an MP. I know, obviously, if you have certain cabinet roles, you get security for life, but I can imagine that wasn't the case for
it's only Prime Ministers who get it for life.
But it's interesting, in a way, it's not linked to the story of Ann Widdecombe, the fact that Nigel Farage says, I got a lot of this money because I needed the security, and yet suddenly this story occurs, and I think he was very restrained and quite measured. I think he could have gone a lot further in drawing parallels between those two.
I am left with a slightly uneasy feeling hearing, whilst I agree with Lucy completely, there was no open speculation, I couldn't help but feel from the tone of what he said, and perhaps this is just my own view on this, that perhaps he was inferring that there could be political connections and motives. I think he.
There might be. We don't know.
I think he could have been clearer up front. We don't know at this point in time, and at this, obviously.
Or maybe he does know but can't say.
Maybe he doesn't. As I say, I was left slightly uneasy there. I felt that perhaps he was connecting it too much back to. We don't know the motivations for what's happened yet.
Well, we will find out in the fullness of time. I mean, it seems a long time ago, but we should just get your opinion on the front page of the Times this morning. Met inquiry into £500,000 donation to reform question over cash from fraud convict's mother, and that's just more problems for Reform UK. They will, of course, be focusing on how best to remember Ann Widdecombe, but these questions and allegations continue.
They do, and it's interesting to discover that actually the National Crime Agency has been looking into this for quite some time. They're not quite sure how a 7-figure sum has actually been obtained, and the very fact that this information is coming out now is really, it rather highlights how wise it was for Nigel Farage to suddenly make a really big point of resigning and then having a by-election in Clacton, because it's one thing to have these stories which could last a day or two, but if you yourself are now a prominent story for 4 weeks, people are going to want to find things out about you and talk about you, and this gives this kind of story much more prominence, and I'm sure that's not what he intended.
Mike, just a quick reaction on the money.
First quarter of this year, Reform received about £10 million. £8 million of that came from about 3 different donors, and Reform accounted for 44% of all donations in that first period. So it is right to look into these. Are significant sums of money that are coming, and we're not clear where they're coming from. And whilst, I think it's quite right that, security measures should be there to protect those in public life, the same way that we say we have the Capitol Hill Police, for example, that look after congressmen and senators. There is clearly a lack of transparency around Reform's finances, and it's obviously a large amount of money coming from very few individuals who may or may not have a particular agenda. I certainly find it hard to believe that £5 million could be advanced without any strings attached to it.
OK. Lots to discuss on other matters as well. We will, of course, return to talking about Ann Widdecombe and other matters as well. I want to talk about thousands of offenders not wearing electronic tags, why working from home is apparently bad for our health, and Anthony Hopkins launching a new career in his 80s as a musical artist. Lots more to come on the debate desk, to say nothing of other discussions we're going to have about Shabir Ahmed, the Rochdale rape gang leader as well. There's so much to discuss this evening. Please lift the phone. Let me know your thoughts on all of it. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Labour, interestingly, saying they're considering an emergency law to deport that grooming gang leader. This is Shabir Ahmed. who served 14 years of his 22-year sentence for 30 child rape cases. He got less than 6 months. Basically, if you're going to be a child rapist, you know what, you may as well rape 40 instead of 1, because the sentence is basically the same. I mean, we're literally incentivising child-sodding rapists.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mick in Wellington's been in touch and says Adam Bolton is turning into a bitter bully. Not a good week for him. Duplicity over doorstepping Farage's daughter and misogynist comments on Ann Widdecombe. I'm sure Adam Bolton would disagree with your characterisation there, Mick, but you're entitled to your opinion just as he is. Mick in Wellington there. Michelle says, look at beautiful Anne on that picture with a cake. There's a lovely picture of her with a cake going round. What a wonderful woman with such personality. So what if she didn't want to love life? She obviously thought she had more important things to do. Bless her heart. What a special and wonderful person. I'm so saddened by what happened. She deserved she deserved a peaceful end of life well lived. God bless her, and whoever took her away from the world, Michelle has some critical words for. Neil says, evening Cardi P, so saddened to hear the news of Ann Widdecombe. How much of this is down to the left's rhetoric about far right and racist? Well, we just don't know why she was murdered. We don't understand the detail there. We will, it'll all come out. Merv, very poignant message from Merv. He says, I'm dying of cancer. I only wish I could have switched places with her. And final one from Sarah, who says, it breaks my heart knowing Ann Widdecombe suffered in her last moments. It already upset me this morning. Then the news she was murdered was just too much. What kind of monster does that to a little old lady at home on her own? R.I.P. Ann. I so wish this hadn't happened and she could have lived out the rest of her natural life. We'll be talking more about this as time goes on. I just want to get quick views from Lucy and Mike on the debate desk about a couple of other stories that are around today. Thousands of offenders not actually wearing the electronic tags that they're supposed to wear, Lucy.
This is an extraordinary story. The idea that there are people who can actually refuse to wear the tag. I thought the whole point was that actually you have to wear it. Maybe they reckon 9,000 people in England and Wales are actually not wearing a tag. And this could be bad record keeping. There might be people who are listed as needing a tag, but actually that was a mistake. They weren't needing a tag. The bottom line is, I don't think the records are really very well kept.
The Ministry of Justice says it's a mere 5,450 people, so I'm sure we can all be happy about that, Mike.
I mean, how on earth they're going to try and do early release if electronic tagging isn't working?
Well, we're always told this is you can monitor them and all as well. Remote work is popular, but it could be bad for your health. Lucy, what do you make of this one?
Completely. We are very relational creatures. We come into this world physically joined to another human being, and it's kind of our pet template. So when we are isolated, and we know this so well from COVID, from the pandemic, from lockdowns, that actually that can really seriously impair people's health and mental health in particular, but also their physical health, because they're not commuting, they're not exercising, they're not active in that way. So it's a lose-lose, I think, from a health point of view.
What do you think?
I'm the world's biggest introvert, so personally, working from home has been great for me. You know, less social contact, the better, as far as I'm concerned. I'm joking.
But I mean, the thought that it could be bad for your health. I mean, is that something that you?
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree. I've noticed, because I hybrid work, and I noticed there are days when I go to the office and seeing people noticeably makes me happy. And this is a very good research, and I think it
depends on the people you work with.
Well, generally speaking, Lucy's right. We are built intrinsically to want to be near other people. It's in our DNA, and this is a wonderful thing to be talking about, because it's not about productivity, it's actually about how it impacts well-being and other factors as well.
Speaking of people you work with, I have a friend who says there are 4 types of people you work with. There are work friends, actual friends who you would be friends with even if you didn't work with them. There are enemies, and then there's a 4th category, which is most people, which is, as she puts it, mandatory working companions, just people who happen to share the same office with whatever. Mandatory working companion. Let's hear some of the music of Anthony Hopkins. He is launching a career as a musician, aged 88. He's going to release his debut single, Bracken Road, before a 12-track album inspired by his Welsh childhood next month. Oh, we don't seem to have the music just at the moment, but he's signed to Decca Classics and is going to release his debut single, Bracken Road, on Friday. The single, inspired by his memories of growing up in Port Talbot, and is billed as a nostalgic musical portrayal of streets, meadows, farmland and mountains that surrounded his family home in the 40s. What do you make of this, Mike?
Sounds wonderfully idyllic. I can't wait to see what the music sounds like. Sorry.
Well, indeed. And do we have the music? I don't think we do, but Lucy, we can certainly say that at 88 you can have new beginnings.
Yeah, and having a portfolio career is very now.
Especially for an 88-year-old.
Yeah, yes, I think I might.
For an octogenarian,
and if I worked at Decca, I'd want to meet Anthony Hopkins, so I would definitely sign him. But it's not Taylor Swift, is it?
Your best friend, Taylor Swift, of course.
He's entering his classical era.
Yeah, well, indeed. Maybe it's the less, maybe it's the loudness of the lambs rather than the silence. One would say. We can hear a blast of Anthony Hopkins. Here we go. Well, there we are. It does sound like classical and very nice. The single will be followed by the release of an album, Life is a Dream, performed by the Grammy Award-winning conductor Gustavo Dudamel at the Philharmonic Orchestra. So there we are. It's never too late to start. Lucy Beresford, psychotherapist and broadcaster, and Mike Indian, political commentator. Lovely to have you on the debate desk. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me know your thoughts on what they said and what you would like to say, particularly about Ann Widdecombe or any of the other stories that we're talking about. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call, and we'll take calls very, very soon. We'll also talk about Shabir Ahmed, the rape gang leader. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, I'm Peter Cardwell. This is the Evening Exchange and I'm with you for the next hour, right up until 9 o'clock this evening. Slightly shorter Evening Exchange on a Friday. We're reflecting on the very, very sad news that Ann Widdecombe, the former Conservative Minister, the former Brexit Party MEP and the Reform Party spokeswoman on immigration, has been murdered. It's a really shocking story. She was 78 years old, and when we heard this morning she had died, we thought maybe it was of natural causes. Then we heard the dreadful news that she'd been murdered. A man has been arrested. He is a 26-year-old white British man. We'll hear a bit more about that in a second. We're also your tributes are coming in thick and fast, and I'll read out as many of them as I can. There's also been a controversy about how various people have referred to Ann Widdecombe. Adam Bolton, the broadcaster, is under fire for that, as is Peter Tatchell, the campaigner and rights activist. We'll also be talking about Rochdale, because Pakistan, the country, has said that it will not take back the Rochdale rape gang leader under any circumstances, meaning he's likely to spend the rest of his life in the UK. There's been a big diplomatic row about this as well. We'll talk about that. We'll reflect on all the other stories you want to talk about too, and a horrendous story from the Green Party considering a motion to lift economic sanctions on Iran and pursue peace building with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, backed by the Greens for Palestine group. Who else? The proposal faces severe criticism from security experts and politicians who call it reckless and dangerously naive. Lots to discuss this evening. I'd love to hear your views on all of it. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 7222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. Stay with me here until 9 o'clock on the Evening Exchange on Talk. Let me just bring you up to date, because it's been a really, really busy day and there's a lot that's happened. We started the day talking about Reform UK and money and more allegations about £500,000. Then came the really shocking and horrible confirmation that Ann Widdecombe had died. Then a bit later in the afternoon, I think it was around 3 o'clock, there was confirmation that there was a murder inquiry into the 78-year-old's death. Then a bit later on, around tea time, 6 o'clock-ish, there was a press conference from Devon and Cornwall Police. That's the area Ann Widdecombe lived in. And their Assistant Chief Constable, Matt Longman, had this to say.
We can confirm that a 26-year-old man was arrested at an address in Newton Abbot this afternoon on suspicion of the murder of Ann Widdecombe. The suspect, who is a white British national, remains in police custody whilst the inquiries continue. Officers were called to Miss Widdecombe's home at Haytor by the ambulance service around 11:40 a.m. on Thursday the 9th of July. Sadly, 78-year-old Miss Widdecombe was located deceased within the property. She has sustained serious injuries. Her next of kin have been informed and are being supported by specially trained officers. Detectives from the Force Major Crime Investigation Team have launched a murder investigation and are conducting extensive inquiries into the circumstances surrounding Miss Widdecombe's death. While we work closely with our partners and have consulted counter-terrorism policing as part of our initial inquiries, the incident is not being treated as terrorism. A cordon remains in place at the property while specialist officers continue forensic examinations. There are road closures in place around the scene, and the public will see significant police activity in the area while detectives and other officers continue house-to-house and CCTV inquiries. This is an extremely tragic incident. Our thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Miss Widdecombe at this very difficult time.
Devon and Cornwall Police's Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman. Well, in the last hour or so, Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform UK, of which Ann Widdecombe was an immigration spokeswoman. She was, of course, a Conservative minister earlier in her career. She ran for leadership of the Conservative Party as well. She then joined UKIP. She joined the Brexit Party. She was an MEP in the European Parliament for the Brexit Party. Not in the last few years, she'd been part of Reform UK, and she had been an immigration spokeswoman. In fact, she was on this programme 2 days ago speaking to, not on this programme, sorry, on the station, I should say, 2 days ago speaking to Mark Dolan about her views. I've interviewed her myself many times. Nigel Farage had this tribute this evening.
Ann Widdecombe was an extraordinary woman, without doubt the best-known female politician in Britain since Margaret Thatcher. Many, many years in the Conservative Party, then she joined me in 2019 in the Brexit Party, was an extraordinary colleague in the European Parliament, and then beyond that into Reform. She reached, of course, way beyond politics with Strictly Come Dancing, Big Brother, her theatre tours. She wasn't just a politician, she was a celebrity. The thing about Anne is, she never ever sought popularity. She stood up and fought for what she believed in. A devout Christian and somebody with strong socially conservative views. Perhaps not popular in modern Britain, but that is what Anne believed in. And she could stand on a stage and give a speech. Didn't need prompts, didn't need notes, knew in her heart and her mind what she actually believed. There were times over the years when she and I disagreed, and she never, ever, ever let me get away with anything. But our disagreements would be in private, not in public, and that was Anne. Loyal. She understood that it was a team game and how the whole thing worked. I watched her with drivers, waiters, waitresses. She was kind to everybody. Frankly, this was somebody who gave her life to public service, to fighting for the things that she believed in. She herself would not have harmed a fly. And I'm deeply, deeply upset by the nature of her death. I'm pleased that the police have caught somebody, a 26-year-old man. We don't know what the political motives are, whether they exist at all. Was it a burglary gone wrong? We just don't know. And I'm not going to speculate at this stage. I'm pleased the police are doing their job. Our nation is a much, much poorer place without her. Reform UK is certainly a much worse place without her. I was expecting to see her in Clacton over the course of the next few days. Sadly, that is not going to happen. Rest in peace, Anne. A remarkable, principled woman, and a truly dreadful way to die, and a terrible reflection on modern Britain. And I do fear that for anybody in public life, or especially the political space, things have become even more dangerous today.
The Prime Minister has paid tribute to Ann Widdecombe. This is what he said.
Well, this is really shocking news. And my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe at this awful time for them. Ann was a distinguished politician over many, many years with many achievements, and it's a huge, huge loss. I've spoken to the Chief Constable this afternoon about the details, and I think this is really important, that this is a moment where we rise above any political differences, the political divide, and say the single most important thing at the moment is that all of us and the public help the police identify the individual suspected and make sure he's arrested as quickly as possible. He's clearly dangerous, and I implore everybody who's got any information in relation to him to help the police with their inquiries, get him into police custody. To that end, I've spoken to the Speaker of the House, I've spoken to the Leader of the Opposition, I've spoken to Nigel Farage as the Leader of Reform, and I've spoken to Andy Burnham to urge everybody to come together at a moment like this and to urge everybody to help the police. But go back to where I started. My thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe, a distinguished politician over many, many years.
The Prime Minister was speaking earlier before a 26-year-old man who we're told is a white British man was arrested on suspicion of murder. He hasn't been charged. There obviously hasn't been a trial or anything yet, so he is only arrested on suspicion of that. He's being questioned at the moment by Devon and Cornwall police. Also before that arrest, Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, spoke. She is, of course, the leader of the party. Ann Widdecombe was a minister she was a minister in the major government. She was prisons minister and spent a very long time, a large part of her career, in that party before defecting to other parties, including UKIP and the Brexit Party and Reform and so on. So Kemi Badenoch said this earlier.
I've been stunned to hear this awful news. To be honest, I've really struggled to find the words to say. Ann Widdecombe was a very fun and feisty woman who spoke her mind, and she was 78 years old. She was an elderly woman. I don't understand how someone could do something so horrific to an elderly person. It is a nasty, horrific attack, and my heart is breaking for her family. It's one thing when someone dies, but to know that they've been murdered in this horrible horrible way is just awful. The Conservative Party is reeling. Anne was a long-standing member of the Conservative Party. She was a Conservative minister, and then she moved to Reform, of course. As we know, I'm sure that they are just as stunned as we are, and I extend my condolences to Nigel Farage and everyone in Reform on behalf of the Conservative Party, because we've both lost a friend.
I think Farage, I think Starmer, I think Badenoch, all three of them did a really good job in paying tribute to Ann Widdecombe there. I think they did excellent work. They spoke for the nation, all three of them, and we obviously, very many viewers and listeners to this programme don't agree with necessarily them politically, but I think we can all agree that those sentiments are very, very good and statesman-like and statesman-woman-like comments. There's been a lot of consternation about some comments that haven't been helpful, that haven't been nice, including from Peter Tatchell, who has made comments about Ann Widdecombe and her record on gay rights, for example. She disagreed with him on many things. He's written, "I apologise for my insensitive comments about Ann Widdecombe's death. Nobody deserves to die, no matter what they believe in. My sincere condolences to your family and friends. I support the police investigation and want justice for Ann." Similarly, Adam Bolton, the political commentator, was speaking on Sky News earlier and made reference to things that I just don't think he should make reference to on the death of Ann Widdecombe. This is what he said.
But she was very much a spinster. I mean, by the end, I think you probably describe her as an old maid. Reportedly, she claimed that she was a virgin. She had a relationship at university. She went to Oxford University, into an all-women's college, of course.
Well, the leader of Kent County Council, Reform UK's Lyndon Kemcaran, talked about that on Sky News. She was interviewed a bit later on, and the Sky News presenter clarified and said Adam's views do not reflect this channel. He hasn't apologised for them so far. Adrian in the Isle of Wight has sent us a voice note on what Adam Bolton has said as well. I just want to hear from Adrian before going to our next guest. This is a voice note from Adrian.
Good evening, Peter. This is Adrian from the Isle of Wight. Interesting, the comments from Adam Bolton, the washed-up journalist who sits there and pontificates about anything and everything. A bit Thoreau-like comments based on what Thoreau tried to trap Anne into. And I think he should just be ashamed of himself and just walk away and just say nothing, apart from an apology, of course, and then just keep a low profile for, I don't know, 20 years. Good show. Take care. Bye.
Adrian, thanks for your comments. I want to talk about another very important story, which is the UK and Pakistan being at loggerheads over attempts to deport the ringleader of the Rochdale rape gang. It had emerged that Islamabad, in the capital of Pakistan, refusing to take him back. Marilyn Hawes is with me now. She's the Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse. Let's talk about that in just a second, Marilyn, but I'm sure you have some thoughts on the very sad death of Ann Widdecombe as well.
I've just come back from walking the dogs this morning, and it came up on my news feed, and I was absolutely stunned. I truly was stunned. I thought, it doesn't matter whether you liked her politics or not. As a human being, she was a good soul, and we have lost a very good soul. She was a critical thinker. She was intelligent. She was articulate. She said what she thought. She believed what she thought. She was dedicated to her Christianity and her Catholic faith, which is why she would not have gone along with LGBT, because that's what, I mean, I was brought up a Catholic. I'm not now, but I mean, it's not what they go along with. I mean, but she was 100% genuine, a force of nature, undoubtable integrity, and a kind, not malicious woman. I just fear, and humorous. I mean, see her on, Strictly Come Dancing. I mean, you can have a laugh with her. Do you know what I really feel, though? I agree with your summing up, Peter. I thought what Nigel Farage and Kemi and Keir Starmer said was spot on. What we haven't heard from is anybody from the leader of the Catholic faith.
Yeah, we need to hear that. We need to hear that.
And what we haven't heard from is the king, our Muslim king, who, should be jumped. This woman was world known. She was internationally known.
Yeah, the king isn't a Muslim. He's head of the Church of England.
Her legacy, this woman she can't have been killed in this way for no reason. There's a legacy here. This country needs to stand up and and fight for Christianity in this country, because the church leaders are doing stuff all about it, and they need to come out and stand up and step up, because otherwise you're washed down the drain, and everything she lived for would have been wasted. As an amazing woman, and whether you like her politics or not is irrelevant. Adam Bolton is a disgrace.
Okay.
Utter disgrace.
Thank you for your thoughts on that. Let's talk about this story about the UK and Pakistan at loggerheads. This is a diplomatic row that's gone on for many days over attempts to deport the ringleader of the Rochdale rape gang, Shabir Ahmed. He served 14 years in jail for multiple rapes and sexual abuse against young girls. He was released from prison last week, and you know and I know, Marilyn, there will be a lot of money being used now to keep him safe. Money that was not used and protection that was not afforded to the girls he raped and the rape that he coordinated as well. The Home Office now attempting to amend the law to allow him to be deported, but Islamabad, the administration in Islamabad, have said that they will not take him back under any circumstances. So I wonder what you make of that.
Making a joke of this, if you like, fly over Pakistan, parachute him in and shove off. Leave him to it. That's just the joke part. Quite honestly, why can't they? I mean, this is just nonsense. When this has happened on the Tory party watch, when he was convicted, right? At that time, they knew that he was going to be at some point released. So he should never be released. No violent prisoner of this ilk should be early released, which is what the Labour Party promised when Liability Lammy came out and said that violent people who are a threat to the public would not be released.
That's right, and that wasn't true. And Mastermind himself overseeing a system that allowed someone with a 19-year sentence to come out after 14 years in jail.
That's great. It's outrageous. And it's what about the victims? They have human rights. You know, they are devastated. Yesterday or today was Fiona Goddard's birthday, and she could not celebrate her birthday. She's in a terrible mess about it, as is Sammy Woodhouse, as are others. It is outrageous. The government, they have a fiduciary duty of care to make sure people in this country are protected from harm. And, you know, what annoys me is also, I know, because I deal with the job I do, I've visited people in prisons. They would have known, the Labour Party, weeks before that he was up for parole. But the parole was turned down earlier, about a year ago, because he was violent inside. He's shown no remorse. He wouldn't go on any of the rehabilitation programmes. He should never have been released. This man will not stop. It doesn't matter what you do to him, he will not stop. So here's the thing. Why can't we just say to Pakistan, here's the thing, you get no more foreign aid. And here's the thing, you have no visas, even for the good people, no visas to come into the UK. Take it or leave it. End of.
Well,
Why can't we do that?
That all
in this country.
And loads of people are going to agree with you on that. The Prime Minister's spokesman on Thursday saying, we're absolutely clear that where foreign criminals commit offences in the UK, we'll do everything in our power to remove them. But they're not doing everything in their power, are they?
They don't do anything. It's hot air coming out their backside, Peter. I have heard from so many people that this barbaric brute, this is not just sexual abuse. This is on an industrial scale, barbaric brutality, rape in god-awful circumstances. I can't even say it on air. I know it's watershed time maybe, but there's so much failure in the people in this country, and I include the Tory party, who should have done a better job, who should never have released them. Okay. He can't go back in. I mean, because he's now, you know, he's been let out, so he can't go
certainly.
back.
No, I know what you mean.
He will reoffend. He will reoffend. Who is out there now? He might be, you know, got a thing around his ankle.
Well, and we heard earlier today that there are at least 5,000 people with those ankle tags that aren't being monitored. Maybe he's one of them. Marilyn, listen, thanks for your thoughts. I really appreciate you joining us on the programme this evening. Marilyn Hall's there, Chief Executive of Freedom from Abuse. What do you think about what she said? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss this evening, and lots of tributes to Ann Widdecombe as well. Let me read out a few more. There are so many people who want to get their point across, including Penny, who says, I'm absolutely devastated to hear Ann Widdecombe has been murdered. Bad enough she died, but murdered. Unbelievable. When I worked in the prison service, she visited with Michael Howard, who said to me as he passed by, how are you? And walked away with no time for me to reply. Ann looked at his retreating back, raised her eyebrow and said, how are you? We both laughed. I made her a drink and Howard as well. She was gutsy, ballsy, and said it exactly how it was. She was said to be the most honest politician, a wonderful lady who seemed to be indestructible until some lowlife decided to murder her. She will be seriously missed and should still be with us. Susan says this country is going down the pan. This person needs to be in prison for life, whoever it was who murdered Ann Widdecombe. I really feel for my country. People being allowed out of prison, no tagging, murderers and rapists. Something needs to be changed soon. People rotting because their country failed to win. I'm so ashamed of what this country has become. This is all because of the idiots in charge. They have no idea at all. Merv says, sadly, I know this might be seen as anti. This is probably why Nigel Farage needs money for security. Let me tell you, if she wasn't a political person, she would still be alive, says Merv. Sally in Devon says, why has no talk presenter referred to Ann Widdecombe as Dame Anne when she was a Dame of the Order of St Gregory the Great, awarded by Benedict XVI in 2013? It's not a British honour, but a very high accolade nonetheless, and one she would have regarded more highly. Thank you, Peter, says Sally in Devon. That's a very, very good point. She took her Catholic faith. It was fundamental to her, certainly, and she was a papal dame, just as people can be papal knights. Usually they're not referred to as that, and even though, of course, she was a papal dame, and that's a good reminder. Cliff in Berkshire said, a very sad day. Adam Bolton has surprised me with his comments about the late Ann Widdecombe. I'm a great believer in the old saying of, if you have nothing to say, nothing nice to say nothing. Alex in Cardiff says, I'm sorry, I don't care. Keir Starmer's rhetoric about reform has been bad enough for a lunatic to murder someone. Language matters with the political climate. It is so fragile. Ann Widdecombe was a patriot and also had an amazing faith. She was a generous lady who had conviction with her political views. It might just be a burglary gone wrong, but we'll have to wait and see as the police investigate. But anyone of any faith, followers of all political parties, should stop and say a prayer for her, even if atheists. Stop and wish her well with wherever we go. May Ann Widdecombe rest in peace, and everyone's good wishes go with her, says Alex. Lots more coming up, and we'll get some calls as well coming up in just a second. If you want to add your voice this evening between now and 9 o'clock, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Labour, interestingly, saying they're considering an emergency law to deport that grooming gang leader. This is Shabir Ahmed, who served 14 years of his 22-year sentence for 30 child rape cases. He got less than 6 months. Basically, if you're going to be a child rapist, you know what, you may as well rape 40 instead of 1, because the sentence is basically the same. I mean, we're literally incentivising child-sodding rapists.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks, everybody, for being in touch. Joe in Willerby in East Yorkshire says, thank you to you and the Talk team today for a very measured and dignified obituary to Ann Widdecombe and allowing members of the public to offer their condolences to her friends and family. It's clear very many people held Ann in the highest regard, which shows what a truly formidable woman and politician she was. It is a sad day for Great Britain. Thank you, Joe, for that. And thank you to Mary in County Down as well, who said that Ann Widdecombe was a woman for whom the word indomitable was created, which I totally agree. me. Songbird Anna on Twitter says, I am horrified at how low we have sunk in the UK, politics in particular, with a hatred towards people with different political opinions. In my dad's and granddad's day, they would debate but agree to disagree and shake hands. This nonsense needs to stop. Amy says, I've been in shock all day about the fact Ann Widdecombe has died, especially as she was only on Talk on Wednesday with Mark Dolan. She was on top form. Amy, I know exactly how you feel, and thank you to Joanne as well from Willerby in East Yorkshire. Really nice message. And yeah, I mean, we're all feeling it here, certainly. I spoke to Alex Phillips earlier on, and a few other people just, you know, in the office were in shock, really, at all of this, as I think the nation is too. Let's speak to Paula in London, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Paula, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, good evening, Peter.
Hi there.
What hit me when I found out was my heart felt she's an elderly lady. That's the first thing I thought. This is an elderly lady, first and foremost. This is an elderly lady that lived alone. You know, politics is not an elderly lady. Mm-hmm. And at that, probably vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Breaks my heart that maybe, I don't know, I guess we'll find out, was she singled out because of who she was. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is she was an elderly lady. When am I going to look after our elderly here? Yeah. Make sure they're protected. It disgusts me. It's abhorrent. The person who did this is weak, spineless, and evil. And anybody endorsing this and celebrating this, you should hang your head in absolute disgusting shame, because we should be looking after our elderly. My parents are elderly. Mm-hmm. I feel so strongly about this because also as a woman, and I've never had kids. I'm not married. I have a partner, but every day is a struggle for women when they go out and face, and we face verbal abuse. And she had more backbone than a lot of them MPs in Parliament as it stands right now, and in particular the men. And I'm not getting at men because I'm not a hater of men. I have a partner. But it infuriates me that I was on the tube one day and I got verbally assaulted by a gentleman for no reason. It was to do with something on the back on the vents, and I was moving it, and he started verbally abusing me. And the only person that called him out when he got nasty verbally was another woman. And all the other men sat there. And I'm not being horrible, but we need to start looking after our...
You're absolutely right, Paula. And I'm so sorry that happened. And I've been verbally abused in the street as well. It happened as a result of something I said on air at one occasion in an interview I did. And it's not nice. You feel horrible. And I appreciate your thoughts on Ann Widdecombe as well. That's Paula in London there. I appreciate that. Connor is also in London and has given us a shout too. 0344 499 1000. Let's hear from Connor. What's on your mind this evening, Connor?
Good evening, Peter. How are you?
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in shock. I'm really annoyed just to hear it. Like, you know, obviously when we heard this morning that she had died, we thought, you know, well, 78. I mean, it's thankfully in this country it's not really old, you know what I mean? But obviously then when we heard about the police,
it was really shocking. The whole thing has just been really shocking. To hear that she died, I was surprised. I thought, you know, 78 isn't really old, as you say. And then the murder inquiry just came out of nowhere. It was really shocking.
It's so rotten. But I think, you know, obviously, and I hope she knows that there's loads of people out there, myself included, who are praying for her and thinking of her and all of her family and all of her loved ones. But I just, to reflect on her life, I think that she was part of that generation of politicians she was a conviction politician, and I think, you know, I happen to agree with an awful lot of what she said, but even if you didn't, I think you have to give credit to someone like that who was a product of what they believed was right, not what they believed was popular, and certainly not a product of what a consultant or an advisor or a focus group.
Do you think we're missing that in politics, Connor? We're missing so many people who actually have conviction and are speaking their mind, not just mouthing off, but actually based on very, very strong principles that Ann Widdecombe, for example, had, a lot of them based in her Catholic faith.
Very much so. And just on the Catholic faith, I think we should refer to her as Dame. But I think, you know, it's easy to blame Blair for a lot of things, but I think that sort of New Labour, the era of the third way and stuff like that, and trying to triangulate and speak out of both sides of your mouth, I think that era of Spain has a lot to answer for as far as this. And by the way, I don't just say that because I agreed with that. I think I would say the exact same about Tony Benn, Barbara Castle, Mo Mowlam, you know, loads of old-fashioned left-wing figures who were just unashamed and unreconstructed, and there's an honesty to that.
Yes.
And I think the other thing I think you have to remember with that is we get an awful lot of talk now from the media and commentators about how, well, you can't have strong language in politics because that itself causes, violent acts in the streets and stuff. And there might be something to that, but actually, older generation of politicians shows that you can be as cutting as you like across the chamber of House of Commons or in a debate, but it is just words.
Mm-hmm,
you don't have to tone down, or you don't have to soften your beliefs and it sort of turn everything into an if or an or just to make the conversation level. We used to be mature enough to absolutely have it out on the issues, play the ball and not the man or woman.
Yeah, very, very good point.
That's an awful loss.
Very good point, Conor. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. We'll hear more from John Rentoul, the chief political commentator at The Independent, on that and a number of other political stories. I just want to play a couple of things first, including a voice note from Elisa on Ann Widdecombe. She sent this in.
Absolutely tragic. My heart goes out to everyone who knew Anne and everyone that loved her. It's just horrific. But it's so nice to hear Kemi and Keir, who are on different sides of the political divide, talk with grace. It's not something we hear often enough. If only our politicians behaved like this all of the time, we wouldn't feel so divided.
A very, very good point from Elisa there. Thank you. On Adam Bolton as well, Rick says, stop with the Adam Bolton stuff. Nothing he said was an insult. She was a spinster. That's a fact. If she'd been married and lost her husband, she'd have been a widow. Would you object to that term being used? Steve says, it is time we all woke up and realised that the left-wing politics of the last 30 years have turned this country into a cesspit. Michelle says, why is it okay to comment on Anne's personal life and call her a spinster and an old maid just because she didn't dedicate her life to having a family? If it was a man, he would be completely different. He would be described as a distinguished man who spent his life dedicated to politics. It's shocking, says Michelle. Penny says Marilyn Hawes is brilliant. Why waste money, though, on a parachute? Penny, I don't believe in the death penalty for anybody, but I know what you mean. I can understand the strong views on that. Cian in Cornwall says, so sad to hear about Ann Widdecombe. I saw her at the Reform rally a couple of years ago in Cornwall, and just a few weeks ago she spoke at a local Reform event. I met her, I bought her autobiography, which she signed. She was such an inspiration and a rare breed in politics today. I was so shocked to hear the news this morning. She will be missed, but I hope her legacy lives on in Reform. That's Cian in Cornwall there. And on electronic tags, Dawn says, as far as I know, electronic tags can be compromised. I've actually witnessed this on one particular offender in my professional life. Stuart says, why should Pakistan take this evil man back when the Liberals in Britain let people like this into our country and then let them behave just how they want and then let them out early before the end of their sentence? It is disgusting, says Stuart. And Cliff says, I was somewhat amused by the news that Lawrence Fox is going to stand against Nigel Farage and Count Binface and Clacton. If I were Nigel, I'd be tempted to come on stage when they announce the result with a bucket of water, throw it over the fox and shout, get away from that bin. Have I got a warped sense of humour? Cliff, you've made me smile on a sad evening. Thank you for that, Cliff in Berkshire. We'll go to John Rentoul in just a second on all the political stories, including Ann Widdecombe, and this madness from the Green Party, considering a conference motion to lift economic sanctions on Iran, pursuing peace building with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. I mean, I absolutely despair. Stay with us here on Talk and get your views on the air between now and 9 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Leslie's been in touch and says, why doesn't this government reinstate the Pakistan Airlines ban they reinstated a few months ago? Sue in North Yorkshire says there are strict rules regarding the handling of personal information. Although Nigel Farage's bank had the legal requirement to flag the large amount credited to his account regarding money laundering, the National Crime Agency should not be sharing the information with the media and others. There are strict rules regarding data protection and the handling of personal information. Clearly there are questions to be asked as to how the personal banking information of Nigel Farage and other Reform members has got into the hands of the media, never mind why and when they were given the money. Lots to discuss on all of this, and we'll get into that with John Rentoul from The Independent in just a second. Let's just remind ourselves of the tribute paid by the Prime Minister to Ann Widdecombe, who has died. Indeed, she has been murdered. Let's hear from the Prime Minister.
Well, this is really shocking news, and my thoughts, I think all of our thoughts, will be with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe at this awful time for them. Ann was a distinguished politician over many, many years with many achievements, and it's a huge, huge loss. I've spoken to the Chief Constable this afternoon about the details, and I think this is really important, that this is a moment where we rise above any political differences, the political divide, and say the single most important thing at the moment is that all of us and the public help the police identify the individual suspected and make sure he's arrested as quickly as possible. He's clearly dangerous, and I implore everybody who's got any information in relation to him to help the police with their inquiries, get him into police custody. To that end, I've spoken to the Speaker of the House, I've spoken to the Leader of the Opposition, I've spoken to Nigel Farage as the Leader of Reform, and I've spoken to Andy Burnham to urge everybody to come together at a moment like this and to urge everybody to help the police. But go back to where I started, my thoughts are very much with the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe, a distinguished politician over many, many years.
Just to say the Prime Minister was speaking before that a 26-year-old white British man was arrested. John Rentoul is with us now, the Chief Political Commentator at The Independent. John, a sort of a country in shock at what has apparently happened here. What's your reaction, and maybe tell us some memories of Ann Widdecombe?
Well, I mean, I rather liked Ann Widdecombe. I mean, I know she was awfully right-wing for a lot of people, but she was entirely genuine and authentic, and there was a touch of naivety about her. I mean, I remember when she was Shadow Home Secretary in William Hague's shadow cabinet, and she thought it would be a good idea to condemn politicians smoking dope. Which she did at Conservative Party conference, which immediately produced a string of confessions from Conservative politicians that they had actually smoked dope in their youth. I mean, just an example of her naivety, but also her sincerity. I mean, she just thought that the drugs were bad, and she went for it. And I've always enjoyed interviewing her and bumping into her. She was a remarkable person, really.
There is shock as well about, obviously, this man has been arrested and on suspicion of her murder, but that element of things is really has really surprised quite a number of people. When you hear a 78-year-old has died, I mean, Bonnie Tyler died yesterday, she was 75. You kind of think, well, okay, you know, you don't want people to die at that age. Of course, it's still kind of young. But when I heard 78-year-old Ann Widdecombe had died, I thought, okay, that's very sad. I'm sorry to hear it. But it didn't, you know, there was no sinister element. And then this murder investigation, John.
Yeah. No, I was in the Independent's newsroom when the word started filtering through. I mean, I think we got some kind of heads up from some police sources. And the shock was palpable.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Everybody just could not believe it.
Yeah.
You know, there was sort of shouts of who and really. Yeah, I mean, it's just awful. But as you say, you know, we were all preparing ourselves for, you know, running obituaries of, you know, a significant politician in our time. And as you say, 78, you know, you'd expect someone possibly to die of natural causes at that age.
Yeah, it's a rare evening when I talk about tributes from the Prime Minister and Anton Dubek to someone, but I think that sort of illustrates the broad appeal of Ann Widdecombe, and certainly she will be much missed and very well remembered. Nigel Farage, let's talk about him, because there is this story on the front of the Times, lots of investigative journalism, the Met inquiry into £500,000 donations to reform. There's also some polling out today saying that 73% of British people apparently describe Nigel Farage as sleazy, 56% saying he's very sleazy, including 40% of Reform UK voters seeing him as sleazy, apparently. There are many people who, of course, have been following the story of him running in Clacton. And he's under pressure because of the scrutiny over his financial affairs. Where do you think this is going, John?
Well, it's going towards an easy victory in Clapton for Nigel Farage. Presumably, I'm expecting him to win overwhelmingly on a low turnout. But I think that does pose a problem for his opponents because, if there is then a parliamentary standards investigation which finds against him and which punishes him with more than 10 days suspension, thereby setting up a possible recall petition and a recall by-election, he can just go back to the people of Clacton and say, tell them yet again. Each time he can say the establishment is out to get me. I know he has legitimate questions to answer, but I think he has dealt with this political problem. It's not a brilliant solution to fight a by-election, but it's probably the least bad option for him.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you for that. I'm sure those revelations will continue. There's always more in those kind of stories. And Nigel Farage, of course, continues to deny that he's done anything wrong whatsoever. Let's talk a little bit about the Green Party. Extraordinary story from Noah Hoffman in The Spectator. The Green Party considering lifting economic sanctions on Iran and improving diplomatic relations with the fundamentalist Islamic regime. A motion submitted to the party's autumn conference calling for peace building with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and support for UN-led regional security and arms control initiatives that include Iran as a full participant. If passed, it will become official party policy. Now, of course, anybody can bring any motion to a conference, but what planet are these people on, John?
I share your disbelief, Peter. It just confirms that the Corbynisation of the Green Party is complete. This is now the SWP in new clothing. It's misguided anti-imperialism. The belief that any opponent of America anywhere around the world is on the right side of history.
Yes, and any opponent of Israel as well.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm afraid it led Jeremy Corbyn to a lot of dark places and led the Labour Party to a dark place under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership.
Yeah.
And it's now happening to the Greens. And I'm very glad to see them slipping in the opinion polls back to the obscurity where they belong.
Hear, hear. Don't agree with you on everything, John, but I couldn't disagree with a single word of that. Have a lovely weekend, and thank you for joining us, John Rento. Oh, just before you go, actually, John, is John still there? I just want to tell him, actually, you mentioned the drug story about Ann Widdecombe. I remember in my own career as a special advisor, you remember when Michael Gove said that he had taken cocaine? Yes. And of course, because of the Ann Widdecombe thing where she talked about drugs and of course all the calls to all the shadow cabinet members, have you taken drugs, have you smoked cannabis and all the rest of it. As soon as Michael Gove said that, I went to my then boss, James Brokenshire, sadly no longer with us, and had to have what I thought would be an awkward conversation. It was a very straightforward conversation because there was nothing to see and nothing to say. He was kind of as pure as the driven snow as much as you could be and be a politician. And I said, James, I'm sorry, I've got to ask you, I've got to get these phone calls. I've got to ask you, have you ever taken cocaine? Have you ever taken illegal drugs? Obviously he had not, and I was not surprised when that happened. And I said, so the line to take is you didn't take any lines. was quite pleased with that one. John, very good. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend. John Rentoul, Chief Political Commentator at The Independent. Thank you to Stuart, who says, it looks as if the police couldn't get it out fast enough that the suspect is a white British man. Once again, a fine example of two-tier policing. Eileen in Glasgow says, I don't care what anyone's politics are. The thought that that poor woman being murdered, it hurts my soul. She was just on the TV. I'm broken. Society is broken. Nobody deserves this. I'm heartbroken. I don't want to live in this country anymore. Beck says, I don't want to hear any crocodile tears from Starmer. Evening Peter, says someone else. Richard Tice, tribute to Ann Widdecombe, the most heartfelt I've heard all day. He was visibly moved. Becca says the spinster and old maid comment didn't bother me because she described herself the same. It was the last comment I found insensitive and necessary. Max says, I thank Ann Widdecombe for being a great teacher to us all. Free speech means the right to agree or disagree, but with rights come responsibilities, and we all have the responsibility to protect everyone else's point of view and beliefs. God bless her. Penny says, who cares about the gruesome twosome visiting the king? I hope they were checked for microphones. Anything real or made up will be in their next book. Charles is very weak. Where Harry is concerned, I wonder if Camilla was present. She was, actually. She's known to loathe them both, says Penny. They're only there for financial gain, and they know when William is king they will be finished. They're both despicable. Mike and Sue in Nottingham says, good evening, Peter. What an awful day to hear the tragic news regarding Ann Widdecombe. I love to hear her views on talk. Always interesting and forthright. What a lady. She will be truly missed, says Mike. I say Mike and Sue. Thank you for your comments. We'll make sure we get more of your calls, text, tweets and voice notes on before 9 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk.
Labour interesting saying they're considering an emergency law to deport that grooming gang leader. This is Shabir Ahmed, who served 14 years of his 22-year sentence for 30 child rape cases. He got less than 6 months. Basically, if you're going to be a child rapist, you know what, you may as well rape 40 instead of 1, because the sentence is basically the same. I mean, we're literally incentivising child-sodding rapists.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Leslie in Hartley says, I think that's the best thing I've ever heard from Keir Starmer. Ann's death has achieved a temporary unity. Also, Andy in Alicante says, my sister worked in the police call centre in Maidstone. Ann Widdecombe was the MP for Maidstone. She told me that every Christmas Day, Ann would arrive unannounced with cake and turkey sandwiches for everyone. She'd walk around and chat with the workers. No publicity, just her. What a lovely woman. How tragic, says Andy. Ray in Newcastle upon Tyne says, I can't understand why there was a time delay between the initial announcement that Ann Widdecombe had died, which was devastating enough, and the following announcement 7 hours later that she had in fact been murdered. I will personally miss listening to her considered views on current affairs. She was right on so many things. Well, Ray, what happened this morning was her management put out a statement to say that she had died. Now, they will have been advised by the police not to say that she was murdered, I would imagine, and then the police announced a bit later on that they'd launched a murder inquiry. I wonder whether there will have been conversations behind the scenes. Maybe there were family members who didn't want to give adverse publicity. Maybe the people who hadn't been told. There are all sorts of reasons for those things to happen. There's rarely anything sinister in it, Ray. But you're right. It is definitely a question worth asking. Marie says, such tragic news regarding Ann Widdecombe. I come from Maidstone, where she was an MP and had a wonderful reputation supporting her constituents. With reference to people saying rather unkind things, Edwina Curry and Ian Collins was pretty horrible. She said something like, well, Ann wasn't very nice, she didn't have many friends. I was so shocked I stopped listening. It was inappropriate. She came across as a cold and bitter person. Maybe she'd eaten too many eggs for breakfast, Marie. That's an interesting reference to an old one. An old news story. I remember that back in the day. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi, Cardi P. I'm going to miss Witty Weekend, in which your honesty, wit, humour and putting our points across all shone bright. Shabir Ahmed had a sentence 19 years in deportation because of the risk he presented. If he was set to be let out early, surely it should only have been put to him straight in a plane, deported, or he shouldn't have been let out. Stuart is on the line from London. Stuart, I understand you knew Ann Widdecombe. Tell me your memories.
Well, I showed her twice.
Okay.
When I was driving.
Yeah.
And I met her at various reform meetings. And I used to have vigorous debates with her about law and order, in the car. She disagreed with me, and but she'd give you a great chat. You could talk to the lady. You could have a great debate, because I believe, when you get arrested for something, before you're sentenced, it come out, I said to courts, it depends on this or that. Are you on drugs? Are you this? I'm sorry. I said to her, if you rob someone's house, you rob their house.
Yeah.
You don't suddenly become a house burglar.
Yeah.
I want 10 years minimum to life.
And did she not agree with that?
She didn't agree with that, no. Because you know why I say to life? When you're in prison, you can have very violent people. When they get a sentence, they have to be set free. They could be attacking staff. Yeah. They could be taking drugs. With my system to life, you need never release them, ever, if they're not behaving themselves.
Let me just ask you, just on Ann Widdecombe, when you put that to her, did it matter that you disagreed, or did you, the world the world continued to turn?
No, she was wonderful. Mm-hmm. You could have a debate with her.
Yeah. And that's what we need to do. We need to learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. Really interesting to talk to you, Stuart, and I appreciate you getting in touch. Let's speak to Nigel in London, who's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Nigel, what are your thoughts this evening?
Well, good evening, guys. First, I'd like to offer my sincere condolences to the family and friends of Ann Widdecombe, who was slain in the most terrible, brutal way. By all accounts, it's just generally shocking. I wanted to speak about Adam Bolton, but one quick point, if I can. It's interesting that the Deputy Chief Constable has faithfully put out the ethnicity of the person that's been arrested.
They've been guided now to do that when it comes to very serious crimes. So it does seem that that's happening, but some police forces are doing it, some are not. And that it has to be the whole way. It has to be every serious crime. It has to be a blanket policy or not at all.
But yeah, I agree. The reason my main call is I'm rather appalled at the insensitivity, the unprofessionalism and the arrogance, I think, of Adam Bolton. I think his statement was, unnecessary. And I don't think it was warranted. I think he really should think about what he said, whether you like someone, dislike them, or your opinions politically, whatever they may be. When someone has lost their life, I think a tribute, I think polite and professional in his position is far more welcome than his statement he gave earlier.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, and thank you for it. That's Nigel in London there. Thank you for that. It's currently half-time in the Spain versus Belgium match. Just to tell you, it is 1-1. It's a draw there at the moment. The winner from tonight will go through to the semi-final with France on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Let's speak to Joan in Sunderland about the Green Party. Joan, you're very welcome. What would you like to say?
Well, first of all, I've already phoned Talk and expressed my condolences regarding Ann Widdecombe because I thought she was a very nice person.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks for repeating that, certainly, Joan. What would you like to say?
Regarding the Green Party, they're not green at all, the chameleons. They used to be green, hugging trees and worrying about five-toed crested newts and such like. Now they're absolutely ridiculous. I understand where you're coming from when you had your head in your hands regarding Iran.
I mean, they want to peace build with the IRGC. The IRGC are horrible, dreadful people who murdered 30,000 people in January. I mean, you cannot have a reasonable discussion and peace build if Zach Polanski comes along and says, all right, you know, do you want to have a chat about this? It's just absolute pie in the sky.
Well, he is an absolute idiot, and why I call them chameleons. He's changed his name. He's had at least 3 professions. He was a hypnotist who could increase the size of women's breasts. Was it he worked for the...
He claimed to, anyway, yeah.
All the like of that. Legalising drugs and prostitution. Anybody can come in and we'll give them a house.
Oh, they're mad. Their policies are crazy. And what's worse than any of those things you've just mentioned is that they're riddled with people who hate Jews and hate Israel. There's so much of the anti-Semitism problem in the Labour Party has been transposed into the Green Party.
Yes, it has. But all these things that they're tending to give away. If you remember, Jeremy Corbyn tried that years ago. This is it. It's the same people. It's the same politics. Joan, thank you. Have a lovely weekend. That's Joan in Sunderland there. And just speaking about the weekend, I will be back on Monday at 7, of course. But I am also going to be in Times Radio in a few minutes' time going through the politics with Jeff Norcott and his programme. Or you can stick with us and you can watch what just happened with Kevin O'Sullivan. Ernie says, hi Peter, it's no wonder loads of people are starting to think Farage is sleazy. It's because social media is awash with lefties and Restore Britain slagging off Farage and Reform. Sadly, the propaganda is getting results, which in my opinion is very bad for Britain's future. Final call of the week from Grace in London. Grace, what are your thoughts on Ann Widdecombe?
Well, I'm thinking I should put Virgin and Proud Spinster on a T-shirt in memory of her. And I think it's outrageous that anyone would think that was how she ought to be defined.
Yeah.
Because there are others of us who fit that description. But actually, though I had some political differences with her, and I think a few weeks ago I was talking on Jeremy Bryan's show on Channel 5 and she was rolling her eyes at what I was saying. What really mattered is not those differences. You know, I think it was because I was saying that I didn't think that Nigel Farage has the Christian values that he claimed to have, and as a supporter of Nigel Farage, he obviously didn't want to hear me saying that. But actually the most important thing about Christianity is that we believe, and she would have believed, even if she hated my politics, that Christ offers hope. And I really believe that she was so valuable not only to people who appreciated what she did in politics, which was amazing, but she's valuable to God. And I believe that that's where she is right now. And I hope that her family can have some kind of comfort in that, although I can't imagine what they're going through. There is hope and there is value in each human being beyond our political differences.
Grace, a great note on which to end the programme, and thank you very much for it. That's Grace in London.